Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
It is. Every time I sit, look, it all bunches. And by the end of the video, I'm like this. What? Why does it do that?
I don't know, babe. Maybe it's the way you sit.
No, I sit perfectly. There, watch. By the end of the video, this collar's gonna be right here. How's it going?
Hi, guys. So sorry. The last 2 days has it been? Sunday and Monday. 2 devotionals. You can blame me. I've been not feeling very good at all. Saturday I got hit with some type of stomach flu, and I have just been in bed for the last 2 days, and those were the hardest 18 days, man. They were brutal.
I feel like I just came out of boot camp.
Yeah, they were brutal, and once you're going at it, your immune system gets low, and you're easy to pick up a lot of germs, and stuff. But I praise God that I've been able to rest today, and I rested yesterday a little bit, or all day yesterday and a little bit today. But I finally got out of bed. And I was like, let's do our video now,
It's still early, I think.
Yeah, it's I think like 6 o'clock right now, which is good because I'm already feeling really tired. But you guys, there's so many exciting things to talk about. We had our first service on Sunday.
Yeah, I had a first service. It went by well. So many people love the place, love what we've done. I mean, there's still more to do.
Yeah, there's a lot to do still, but those are things that we can take care of as time progresses.
Our main objective was getting the sanctuary ready for Sunday service.
Yeah.
But, now it goes into phase 2, which was a little slower, like the cafe, the front portion of the church.
The children's area, because we can't even fit all the kids in there. So there's things that we need to upgrade and continue doing. We had our first set of kids in there, and I was like, oh my God, we couldn't because the tables were too big in there. So there's changes that we got to make that we noticed, a lot of sitting down with some of the leadership and everything, and talking about, the
vision,
the vision, and, the things that we all want to implement,
the direction we're going.
The direction we're going, so we can make it easier and better for us to be able to, bring new families in and extend more of what we have to offer the children. Yeah, I'm excited about that. But for right now, this week, I think it's a little bit more a rest for us.
Well, I got paintings to catch up on. Yeah,
and that for me, it's hard to see that David has been nonstop. Even yesterday, when I was in here in bed all day, and he was out there with Abraham painting and.
Painting.
No, I know. And then I seen you painting here at home too, and I'm just like, man, I do want you to get some rest. I know you have 2 paintings to do?
No, more than that. I have 3.
Yeah.
I have 3 paintings to finish, and because of the last, it's kind of. Anyway, I don't want to go there.
Yeah, but anyhow.
Yeah,
we're here.
I got to finish paintings.
We're here, and we're blessed to be able to be back with you guys.
Yeah.
Hopefully things will be back in order.
Yeah, hopefully you guys, what I did do yesterday is because I knew Sharon was feeling sick, so I said, somebody had requested a tour of the church, and I'm like, duh, of course, especially, those of you that have been with us all along on this project, some of you that have financially blessed us with, you're right, I wanted you to have a tour to see what it is that we all participate in.
And as we progress as well, we'll be able to update you guys on all of that as well.
So I did have a passage today, and it's words of Jesus, his words, and I wanted to read them.
Okay.
And we are in the Gospel of Mark. Gospel of Mark.
And you're yawning already.
I'm always yawning now. Chapter 7.
Okay, Mark 7.
And I wanted to talk a little bit about what was going on here, because if not, it'll kind of go over your head and won't make sense.
Starting from what verse?
7. Oh, I don't know yet. Oh, now we're 6, but I'm going to talk about the scriptures before that.
Okay.
the Jewish tradition, Jewish custom, they had a lot of different regulations and rules of, I mean, it literally, they had laws like you can't eat certain things with this food or can't eat that food, and they had to wash their cups a certain way. I mean, so there was a lot of things in the Mosaic law in Judaism. So you have to understand that, or else this won't make sense, because we're reading it with a westernized mind. And actually in verse 3, if we back up a little bit, it just talks a little bit about it. Actually, I'm just going to read from 7:1, or else I think it'll fit better in context. The real verse I want to get to is 6, but if we just jump in, it's like jumping into a jump rope halfway going already. So starting in the beginning, it says, then the Pharisees were religious people. They were a religious sect. There's different, in a sense, they're like denominations. Mm-hmm. Like there's Baptist, Pentecostal. Like at that time, there was 3 main ones: Pharisees, Sadducees, and Essenes. Essenes are hardly mentioned, but that was another sect. But right here, the Pharisees and some of the scribes. So scribes were Jewish lawyers. They approached the Bible like a lawyer. Okay? So
because they were scholars, they were...
Yeah, these are scribes. They were basically lawyers. Mm-hmm. Then the Pharisees and some of the scribes came together to him, to Jesus, having come from Jerusalem. Now, when they saw that some of his disciples eat bread with defiled, that is, with unwashed hands, they found fault. Because they had to wash their hands a certain way. And they're like, how come they're not even washing their hands? Like they're breaking the Mosaic law. Mm-hmm. Verse 3, for the Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they wash their hands in a special way, holding the tradition of the elders. Verse 4, when they come from the marketplace, they do not eat unless they wash. And there are many other things which they have received and hold, like the washing of cups, pitchers, copper vessels, and couches. Then the Pharisees and scribes asked Jesus. They asked him, why do your disciples not walk according to the tradition of the elders, but eat bread with unwashed hands? Let's read that until 6.
That's actually really good.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the message. The Pharisees, along with some religion scholars who had come from Jerusalem, gathered around him. They noticed that some of his disciples weren't being careful with ritual washings before meals. The Pharisees, Jews in general, in fact, would never eat a meal without going through the motion of a ritual hand washing, with an especially vigorous scrubbing if they had just come from the market. To say nothing of the scouring, they'd give jugs and pots and pans. The Pharisees and religion scholars asked, why do your disciples flout the rules, showing up at meals without washing their hands?
Okay, that's where we're at. So, remember, scholars were like lawyers. You know how like lawyers, they find any little thing. Yeah. That's why there's so much, even now, people getting sued left and right, this and that. You got to have insurance if you have a business, because people are just looking to fall in your store to blame you so they can sue. So that's how these people were. They were just like looking at the disciples for any little thing. Yeah. So they hit up Jesus. They're like, these people aren't even washing. Like basically what they're doing is saying, what kind of rabbi are you? What kind of teacher are you? Look at your students. Mm-hmm. So then Jesus answers in verse 6. He says, he answered and said to them, well, did Isaiah prophesy of you hypocrites? As it is written, their people honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. And in vain they worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandments of men. Is 6 and 7 separate?
Oh, wow.
So what did Jesus answer?
It says, Jesus answered, Isaiah was right about frauds like you. Hit the bullseye, in fact. These people make a big show of saying the right thing, but their heart isn't in it. They act like they are worshiping me, but they don't mean it. They just use me as a cover for teaching whatever suits their fancy.
Okay.
Oh, it doesn't finish.
Okay.
Ditching God's command and taking up the latest fads.
Oh, man. We're going to have a good devotion now.
It's pretty heavy.
Verse 8. Jesus continues. He says, for laying aside the commandment of God, you hold the tradition of men. The washing of pitchers and cups and many other such things you do. He said to them, all too well you reject the commandment of God, that you may keep your tradition. For Moses said, honor your father and your mother, and he who curses father or mother, let him be put to death. But you say, if a man says to his father or mother, whatever profit you might receive from me is Corban, that is a gift to God, then you no longer let him do anything for his father or his mother, making the word of God of no effect, through your tradition, which you have handed down, and many such things you do. To 13.
Yikes. Okay. He went on, well, good for you. You get rid of God's commands so you won't be inconvenienced in following the religious fashions. Moses said, respect your father and mother, and anyone denouncing father or mother should be killed. But you weasel out of that by saying that it is perfectly acceptable to say to father or mother, gift, what I owed you, I've given as a gift to God, thus relieving yourselves of obligation to father or mother. You scratch out God's word and scrawl a whim in its place. You do a lot of things like this.
That's 13, right?
Yeah.
Let's keep going. 14 says, when he had called all the multitude to himself, Jesus, he said to them, hear me, everyone, and understand. There is nothing that enters a man from outside which can defile him. But the things which come out of him, those are the things that defile a man. If anyone has ears to hear, let him hear. And then it goes on, when he entered a house away from the crowd, his disciples asked him concerning the parable. So he says this and leaves, and the disciples are like, what did you mean by that? And 18, so he said to them, are you thus without understanding also? Like, seriously, guys? Do you not perceive that whatever enters a man from outside cannot defile him? Because it does not enter his heart, but his stomach, and is eliminated, thus purifying all foods. And he said, what comes out of a man, that defiles a man. For from within, out of the heart of men, proceed evil thoughts and adulteries and fornications and murders and thefts and covetousness and wickedness, deceit, lewdness, and evil eye, blasphemy, pride, and foolishness. All these evil things come from within and defile a man.
Yikes. Oh, that's good. Jesus called the crowd together again and said, listen now, all of you, take this to heart. It's not what you swallow that pollutes your life, it's what you vomit. That's the real pollution. When he was back home after being with the crowd, his disciples said, we don't get it. Put it in plain language. And Jesus said, are you being willfully stupid? Don't you see that what you swallow can't contaminate you? It doesn't enter your heart, but your stomach. Works its way through the intestines, and it is finally flushed. That took care of dietary quibbling. Jesus was saying that all foods are fit to eat. He went on, it's what comes out of a person that pollutes. Obscenities, lust, theft, murder, adulteries, greed, depravity, deceptive dealings, carousing, mean looks, slander, arrogance, foolishness. All these are vomit from the heart. There is the source of your pollution. From there, Jesus set out for the vicinity. No, that's it. Okay, right there.
So this whole conversation, what is it we're talking about here? Jesus was basically backing up his students, his disciples, because these Pharisees and scribes, these religious people that knew how to act, knew how to talk, and knew the scriptures, were telling Jesus, look at your people. I mean, they're not even following the traditions. And Jesus was like, exactly. I'm not here to follow tradition. I'm here to break your traditions. Because what happens is they were making their traditions supersede the commandments of God.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with having tradition. Like, there's family traditions. There's traditions we do with people.
Nothing wrong with having order.
There's traditions with certain people at the church. There's tradition that we go eat here or we go eat there. That's a tradition. But when you make that something that supersedes or becomes overbearing, Jesus is like, listen, hold on.
Too hard to follow.
Yeah, Jesus is like, I came to destroy your traditions. Yeah. And then I love the fact that he points to Isaiah and he says that Isaiah quoted, the people honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest part for me is is I trip out, because it's very heartbreaking when you see someone or hear someone that they may be good speakers, they may be good, just amazing. And then you realize that they don't really follow the Lord.
Yeah.
With their heart. Everything's out of their mouth. Everything's out of their mouth, and it's like and it's sad. It's really, really, really sad. And I've always said that anytime somebody, when I was in the music industry, so I was very underground. And every time I took a step higher to be more mainstream, it always sacrificed a part of me. Mm-hmm. You had to water down a certain part in order to reach that level. And that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
Is you couldn't be on MTV or whatever back then unless you were completely watered down. And you were no longer raw. So that kind of rubbed against trying to be a underground hardcore gangster rapper. That went against every principle of it. Because I basically had to compromise myself in order to reach that height.
Yeah.
So I've always had this belief, if you ever reach any height, whether in acting or music or whatever, you are compromised. Whether you agree with me or not, I don't really care because I know how it goes. You are compromised somewhere along the line, maybe some more than others, but there has been compromises. I believe the same thing in ministry.
Yeah, you compromise your walk.
You compromise your walk. If you're a Christian rapper, if you are a pastor, if you are whatever, and it just gets overwhelmingly, because yes, God's blessings are there and God is going to be there, but at a certain point, there's a compromise.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just the way it is, and that, I think that just goes across the board in everything. Mm-hmm. Don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
It goes across the board, and Jesus was like basically telling them, "You're praising me with your lips, but your heart ain't nowhere near me."
Yeah, but he wasn't seeing it.
And that's my prayer always. I'm like, God, let my lips match my heart toward you.
Amen.
And it's like, it was a big deal. I know we haven't talked about it. We haven't done a video. It was a big deal, and even though Sharon didn't know I was going to do it, her reaction when I did do it was beautiful. Was at the church when I was like, you know what, we're going to invite Jesus in, because that's the establishment of what we want to have.
Yeah.
That's it right there, that core. Because it's like, Jesus, if you're not here, I don't want to be here either.
Yeah.
But if you're here, this is the place I want to be at. We want to be there wherever Jesus is at. And, and I think that's very, very important. But more or less, this is why it's relevant to you, is that never let yourself speak in a way that your heart is not there completely. And it's like, if somebody is struggling in their walk, just be real. Don't portray yourself to be here.
To be mightier. Yeah. Mightier than,
Yeah. Don't portray yourself to be here and you're really here. And then when everything comes to light. Everything done in the darkness will come to light. And what will happen is when that comes to light, now what you're doing is making a mockery of God.
Yeah.
And you're making a mockery of yourself.
Yeah.
It's better to say, man, I'm struggling.
And then you become a person who is not reliable to the person who is looking at you as well.
Yeah.
An inconsistent person, because being credible is so important. And, people use that word a lot in business, but our credibility as Christians is so important. It's our testimony, and that's how credibility is built, is through the testimony and by, staying and standing and walking that righteous path, It's important.
So many people worry about their credit score, not worried about their spiritual score. You got all kinds of credit to buy a house, but you got no credit in the kingdom and no credit with the people around you. And thus, because of that, the enemy has caused you to be pacified and ineffective. And you never want to be ineffective. I want you guys to be effective. I want to be effective. You know, I don't want to be, what is it called? Like a strain of a virus that they give you a shot, and now no, that strain has no power because of the, what's the shots called they give people?
The IVs?
The flu shots or whatever they call it.
Oh, the...
I don't get the flu shot, but I'm just using it as an example.
Yeah.
They kill,
immunizations.
Yeah, they do it to kill that strain. And what happens is you don't want the strain of the gospel to be killed in you.
Yeah.
You know, and we just got to be real careful, because look how strongly Jesus talked.
Yeah.
You know, so many times people make Jesus to be out like this carefree hippie guy.
Yeah.
No, man, Jesus was straight up. He was straight up. And a lot of times we want to be like Jesus, but we're following a Jesus that isn't in the Bible. Jesus was straight up direct. He was like, boom, like he would go straight for the jugular.
Yeah.
You know, and notice, he always went toward the religious people. He wouldn't attack the sinners. He wouldn't attack the prostitutes. Why? Because he says they're blind. They don't know. He came to give them sight. That's why he says, I came to heal the brokenhearted and give sight to the blind. He wasn't just talking about physically blind. He's talking about just humanity as a whole.
Spiritually blind.
Yeah, spiritually blind. Mm-hmm. You know, he if Jesus would be walking on earth as a human right now, he would not go and criticize the lost.
Yeah.
He wouldn't. You know, he would have compassion on him. Would he tell him about hell? Yeah, he would. He would. He'd be direct. But nevertheless, he's like, man, you know, they're broken. They don't know what they need. You guys are supposed to be serving me, but it's only with your lips, not with your heart.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just...
You know, I put up a post today, I think it was, I was just laying there, and I put up a post of a little old lady on a bus, yeah. And you could see all this older generation, newer generation just sitting there, and she was just trying to hold on that bus. And, you know, and it made me think of, like, during this whole process, you know, maybe one day my family will see this, who knows, you know, because I pray that they do, because I want them to see how I feel and how important serving God is to me, you know. And, you know, it made me think about a family member that just recently, throughout this time that we were doing the church and getting things prepped and everything, and Abraham was really helping us and everything, and they got very, very upset, saying, all you're doing is spending so much time at your church, and just your church, and what about your kids? You know, they shouldn't be there, and, you know, they should be doing something different in their life. You know, why don't you put that same effort into education, or putting them into college or something like that? And it was really hurtful to me, because they don't really truly understand. They're not seeing things spiritually the way I am, because I know that Abraham being there, at the same time, while he's doing that, I know that he's doing this out of his heart and unto the Lord, because it's not something that we forced him to do, but he did it out of his heart and unto the Lord. And I know that he is very accepting and receives what is being spoken, because I'm seeing the growth in him, you know. And, you know, and I just sit here and I think to myself, well, I would not prefer to have a child who's going to be so educated and be snobby and not have a heart, and not have the compassion, and not have the love of God in their heart. I would prefer to have a hardworking young man, yes, that wants to go for a career in education, but that God is the center of his life, you know. And that's one thing that I think that a lot of the times family will not always understand, you know.
Yeah.
And it was hard for me. I think you saw me get really emotional, and it was really hard for me to receive that. But at the same time, I was like, you know what? That's okay, because we got to make sacrifices sometimes. And there are going to be sacrifices that are going to hurt us. But we have to do what's just and what's right, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it made me think about that.
Well, in saying that, I'm going to use an example another pastor used. This is not my example, but I like it, so I'm not going to take credit for it. But this pastor had a huge rope, like a long, thick rope, all around his entire church. Mm-hmm. And it was a big mega church. So when people came in on Sunday, there was this huge rope. I don't know how he put it around, all the way around. And I don't know if people noticed it or not, but in the sermon, he says, look at this rope. He goes, this is eternity. It represents eternity, the length of this rope. And then he picks up the tip, which was right there at the thing, and this much of it was painted red. He goes, this is your life in comparison to eternity.
Oh, wow.
He goes, and this much of it you've already lived. And this part is where everyone works at. This is retirement. You base all of this for this and don't think about this.
Oh, that's a lot.
And he goes, if you really could see in this way, he goes, am I talking against retirement? Am I talking against these things? No, he goes, I'm not. He goes, it's important. That's wise.
Yeah.
But when you put all of your eggs, and it's crazy when he said, this is your life from beginning to end, and just, we work so hard to be comfortable here. What about the comfort here?
Yeah. Your eternal comfort.
Yeah, and it's like, there's got to be a balance.
Yeah.
Because so many people say, what are you doing ministry for? What are you doing this for? You got to have a better life. You got to have a career. You got to bring money and bring this and that. But they're not seeing the whole rope.
No.
And I'm like, no, you don't understand. It should be us telling you, what are you doing? What are you doing? Because I remember being 20 and it feels like yesterday. Yeah. It feels like yesterday. And it just, every time I preach, I don't know if it's my last. Every time I do a devotional, we don't know if it's our last. Every time you watch a devotional, you don't know if it's your last. Or when I'm preaching, what if it's somebody's last that's there in the congregation, or somebody's last that's watching this YouTube video? And I'm like, okay, could I go and be working so we can be more comfortable? That'll profit me a little bit, because that'll mean maybe my tank will get full in my car, or maybe it'll bring, something, I don't know, a better TV, or a chance to actually reach somebody right now and reach you eternally.
Yeah.
Maybe to some people they'll say, well, no, David, work for the TV, work for, new rims in your car, or whatever. I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't see it like that. I don't. I used to see it like that. I used to see life like that before Christ. Everything was money, 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 money. What can I get? What can I get? I want a bigger house, bigger this, bigger that. I think part of it, a huge part of it, is obviously the gospel. Second part is age. Stuff comes, stuff goes, stuff breaks, stuff gets broken, stuff wears out, and it's like, it's just a bigger picture, and...
I tell people all the time, and I said, if only those people that see what I do now is because I am so happy doing unto the Lord and serving God in any way that I can, because if they only knew the life that I had, and the struggles and the hardship that I had, that serving God was just my place of refuge, going to church was my place of refuge. Having a place to fellowship was my place of refuge. All of that was so important to me. Those are the things that kept me from being pained, from being hurt, and that kept my children from so many things as well. Mm-hmm. You get tired of running in this world so much of being pained, and that was my place of refuge. And I think people would understand more clearly if they were in my shoes, or if they were in your shoes, but the thing is that everybody has their own story as to why they came to Christ, and they'll never understand. We'll get criticized, but they'll never truly understand, and that's okay. I want my children to have an education. I want my children to have a career and to have all of that, but not at the cost of putting God in the back burner and putting Jesus on the back burner and being secondary to everything. I want Jesus to be first in their lives so that all those other things can be added unto, you know?
I have no regret of being a pastor and, you know, our children. I don't regret it. You know, just a few days ago, Sharon's oldest son, who lives here, started telling people about how he sees House of Rest. And I had no idea he saw it like that, because he was, matter of fact, when I came in the picture, he said he was atheist,
yeah.
Didn't believe in God.
But yet then would pray at the table with us and everything.
And then the other day, he said he was telling somebody, he goes, I tell everybody that, yeah, you know,
my stepdad's church, yeah.
My stepdad's church is not like other churches. You know, and he explained a little more. And it let me see that I am doing the right thing.
Yeah.
I remember my son Gabriel, my oldest son that doesn't live here, you know, his grandma she was basically dying. And he called me crying. I have never seen my son cry since he was a little kid, bawling by himself in the hospital room. He doesn't know what to do. And he says, Dad, I want to pray for my grandma. And he was crying. And he was, I want her to be healed. And I said, hold her hand and say these words. And he prayed. And she got better. Like that. Boom.
And this morning, Tristan, what I told you.
Yeah. And this is what I'm talking about. You can criticize David and Sharon because they might not, I don't know, whatever.
You know, this morning.
But in the times of life and death, you tell them about Tristan.
Yeah, this morning, I talked to my daughter because she was calling to see how I was doing, and because she knew that I had been ill, she hadn't told me that my grandson was ill. He's 7 years old, you guys. She said that when she came in from the kitchen getting a towel to bring down his fever, that he had his hand on himself and that he was praying. You know, he was praying for himself. And, you know, when my daughter has called me in the past, I always tell her, put your hand on your stomach or put your hand where it hurts. And I begin to pray, and we begin to pray for her. And those are the things that he has seen, and he just knew by his little faith, he just put his hand on himself and he began to pray. But those are the things, is the reason why we stay grounded, why we stay focused, and why we don't allow the enemy to come in and steal those moments and those things from us. And that is the reason why we got to continue believing, because of who's watching us.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you know, and it's just, even this move to the building, it was unexpected. If you guys were following along, we had quit worship for a while. We were just praying before every service, didn't know why. Now I see why. But it's funny how just being led by God, and all of a sudden, boom, things open. 3 weeks ago, I didn't know we were going to move.
Yeah.
I didn't know. But when the opportunity came, I said, Lord, if this is you, open the door wide open, because we had nothing. Like, we told the guy, we'll take it. We wrote him a check. Because he says somebody else wants to rent it. He goes, but if you want it, it's yours, but I need a deposit right now. We wrote a check, you know, and from that moment on, it has been faith ever since, you know, and we didn't anticipate. Who wants to do a church project between Thanksgiving and Christmas, the worst time?
Oh my God.
Like, I just found out it's a few days to Christmas.
The timing was crazy.
We don't have one decoration up. We don't have nothing up. I don't have nothing. We don't have nothing. There's nothing Christmas.
I still have my Thanksgiving stuff up.
It's been insane.
Because I have not been in our home.
I thank God that maybe a month ago, we happened to be at Costco, and we saw some great gifts for our grandkids. And we're like, well, let's just get them now in case they run out. Other than that, we haven't, nothing to do with Christmas. We've been so focused on this church that I know.
It saves me a little time.
That I know that in the long run, the blessings from it, I will say, you know what? It was worth that sacrifice.
I put up a tree at the church, though, a little one, and it looks really cute. Yeah.
So,
but it has been definitely a hard one. The timing of it was unexpected.
yeah.
Very, very unexpected, you know.
Yeah. It just, there's one thing about me, man, is, like I said, if I truly hear God say do something, I'm just going to do it. I don't have to wait around. I'm not going to see.
Believe and we trust.
I'm just going to, Lord, you tell me, I'm going to run. You know, and if there, it's funny because I want to compare it to, imagine you're on a plank in outer space. And God says, I need you to run. God, there's nothing under me. So you're either going to wait for God to make a bridge, or you're just going to run, expecting that the moment every step takes, there's going to be a platform, and the next one a platform, and the next one a platform. Because I don't know what the platforms, I don't see anything. I just believe in my God. And I just trust him like a maniac. I trust him. You know, I trust him more than anything. I trust him more than the oxygen that I breathe. I trust him more than a career. I trust him more than a dollar bill. I just trust him. You know, and it just looks crazy and silly to other people. But that's fine. I'm just going to keep running. I'm just going to keep running, you know? And it's like, and as we go, it's like he's putting the steps right under your feet. Because there's something about walking in faith. We walk by faith, not by sight. I don't have to see the steps. I just have to hear the order, you know? And I'll probably live my whole life like that and just look like a crazy guy. But whatever, you know?
That's okay.
Yeah.
Amen.
So,
well, guys.
That's our devotional.
We'll see you guys tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Hasta mañana. Have a blessed day.
Oh, did you guys notice the new cross wall we're starting at the church?
Yes. I already have maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 people have brought crosses already. One of them Joe made himself there with the same wood that we used
for the backdrop.
For the backdrop, he actually made I call it the rugged cross, the old rugged cross. It looks just real rugged, but I put it up there.
Ray has more wood for us.
Really?
He sent me a picture of another pallet.
Perfect,
because we need it for the
we can build a cafe.
For the cafe.
So I'm excited. You know, I it's so funny because I even have crosses here that my mom even made out of a little palm tree, and I put it up there. You know, there's crosses that have actually been made, handmade for me and stuff. And, you know, like I told somebody, don't go buy one, make something, you know, make something and send it, make something, or just give it to me and let me put it up there. I want it to mean something. It has to mean something. It's so important. If you see something that catches your eye, let it mean something, because that's going to be there. And we're going to build that cross wall and all the way around if we got to.
But if you send a cross made out of beef jerky, I'm going to eat it.
Don't do it. You will eat it.
All right, guys.
Bye, you guys. We love you guys. Somebody's going to send you one with beef jerky.
I hope they do. All right. Bye.
Bye.